Hello all and welcome to my page. I'm Marcus Cash. Um Down below you will see my media handles for, basically everything. YouTube, Instagram, you name it. Um I appreciate you stopping by the channel. Before I get into my rant of this episode, be sure to click the bell, like, share, subscribe, comment away, and share with any and all. I do appreciate your time and thank you in advance. And welcome back. This is the 12th edition of Bruce Prichard's Monday Night Raw. Now, this show is for August 31st, 2020, and it was one of the most gut-wrenching, tear-inducing, heavy on my heart episodes that I've watched in a long, long time.
It's so sad. It's very sad.
Next pay-per-view that is coming up is the Clash of the Champions. So starting tonight, we have to start building to all the title matches that are going to take place at the Clash of Champions because every championship is on the line at the Clash of Champions. First title we'll get out the way and address here is the 24/7 Championship. Akira Tozawa is driving into a parking lot with his ninjas. He's not on the list, so he can't get by security, but it's fake security. The fake security guard is actually a referee. R-Truth gets the roll-up pin on Akira Tozawa. R-Truth is now a 39-time 24/7 champion, and you'd imagine Akira Tozawa and R-Truth are going to have some sort of dynamic come Clash of Champions against each other, and by that time R-Truth will probably be going for his 50th title reign at that point. Who knows? This whole division has jumped the shark several months ago. I think they need to rework that title into the Raw Underground exclusively, even if it's not 24/7. You gotta rebrand the title, but you have a new segment on your show that's kind of working and a title that doesn't. It solves all the problems. Just combine the two theories. I think it'll go a long way to legitimizing Raw Underground to have a title, and a long, long way to making Raw a little less ridiculous by getting rid of the 24/7 title the way it currently stands. Those are my theories, though. If you have a theory on the 24/7 title, on a title for Raw Underground, or anything about R-Truth and his multiple title reigns, and Akira Tozawa and his ninjas, and anything to do within that division, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your theories. Maybe somebody out there can make a lot more sense of it to me than I've been able to decipher from watching these programs. Now, from joke title, fake title, non-prestigious title to the main title, the WWE title. We have a main event tonight. It's going to be a triple threat match where the winner of that match is going to go to Clash of Champions to compete against Drew McIntyre for the WWE title, assuming Drew McIntyre is cleared to compete at the pay-per-view because he does have a fractured skull from getting repeatedly kicked in the head by Randy Orton. Now, that triple threat match is going to be set up by 3 singles matches that happened earlier in the night. First one being Keith Lee versus Dolph Ziggler. Keith Lee will get the win here. Perfect competition between the two, I think. Dolph Ziggler is that main event level-esque guy who you can believe is always in the title picture, regardless of the fact that he never wins any of those main event matches. He also sells everything fantastically, so he's going to make Keith Lee look like a star as well. This is a perfect power showcase as well for Keith Lee. He hits a lot of the big moves. He lifts and throws Dolph Ziggler around. With Dolph Ziggler's overselling, it was fantastic. Keith Lee will pick up the win with the Spirit Bomb. He's going to advance to the main event tonight. He's going to be met in that match with Randy Orton again after the match they had last night at Payback, because Randy Orton's going to advance into the main event by defeating Kevin Owens. Now, yes, Randy Orton did hit an RKO and he did get a pinfall, but most of the work was actually done by Aleister Black. He does hit the Black Mass on Kevin Owens, and then he throws him into the ring. Pretty quick and easy story to get Randy Orton to advance, but it does also further build the Kevin Owens versus Aleister Black feud. The timing on this is a little confusing because the next pay-per-view is Clash of Champions, and neither one of these two men have a championship to fight over. So I'd imagine they have a blow-off on one of the upcoming editions of Monday Night Raw. Or do they force a non-title match onto a possibly overstacked Clash of Champions card that is typically overstacked? We'll see. Third participant, though, is going to be Seth Rollins, who advances. Now, Seth Rollins, before his match, does shun Buddy Murphy to the backstage area. He's not very pleased with his disciple for being accidentally kicked in the head last night at Payback, and thus taking a loss to the Mysterio family. Seth Rollins, though, does pick up a win here tonight when he defeats Dominic Mysterio, and I know it was advertised last night that Rey Mysterio was going to have a one-on-one match with Seth Rollins. Turns out Rey Mysterio has a torn triceps. Not sure if that's a work, not sure if that's a shoot. Personally hoping that's a shoot, but nonetheless, either way, Dominic Mysterio has an opportunity so young into his WWE career to have a WWE title shot. He does get in some decent looking offense. I'll admit he continues to surprise me in the ring every week. His Lucha Libre offense looks very good. It looks a lot better than Humberto Carrillo's, if I must say so. He does have a pretty bright future ahead of him, but not tonight, because that bright future does fall victim to a blackout when Seth Rollins hits the curb stomp to advance to the triple threat match tonight. Now, in that main event, that triple threat match, Seth Rollins looks fantastic, Keith Lee looks fantastic, but neither one of them are Randy Orton in the year 2020. Randy Orton does pick up the victory with his RKO and advances to the main event at Clash of Champions, again assuming against a returning Drew McIntyre for the WWE title. We have that rematch from the last pay-per-view of SummerSlam. I'd imagine this is the pay-per-view where Randy Orton does get the belt off of Drew McIntyre, unless they are going to double and possibly triple down on Drew McIntyre being a new face, a new top face for the company. I don't know if that belief in him is quite there, particularly without the fans in the arena. Randy Orton also has just been way too good in his role as the most despicable heel of all time again. So I think he does deserve that 14th title reign. Now, coming out of this, my assumption would be we're going to transition into, obviously there's a Seth Rollins versus Buddy Murphy feud that needs to happen now. I think they have a lot more watering to do on that seed. There needs to be more friction between the two, and eventually Buddy Murphy having enough of Seth Rollins' attitude and maltreatment towards him. I don't think that comes up at Clash of Champions. I think that's a story that can reach its conclusion closer to Survivor Series. If it can last that long, probably will end up taking place at the October pay-per-view. But for this month, I think we can transition into Keith Lee versus Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins coming off a storyline with injuring people's eyes, and from Keith Lee's time in NXT, his Achilles heel tends to be his eyes. When people want an advantage, Karrion Kross, Johnny Gargano, they go for the eyes of Keith Lee. I know that's just happenstance and they didn't plan it this way, but I think there's potential there to do something. Plus, they're the other two guys that were in that triple threat match, so they can have themselves kind of like a number one contenders kind of thing. You give Keith Lee another very good person in the ring to work with and to beat and to look spectacular. Seth Rollins has another big man to compete within a legitimate upper card match instead of continuing this feud with the Mysterio family. Because honestly, how long can we drag out the storyline of Seth Rollins versus the Mysterio family?
It's time to move on, so let's move on.
Dominic looked great. He's going to have a fine career. But let's see Dominic Mysterio, preferably under this Prince Mysterio name and gimmick he's supposed to be getting. Let's get that underway and let's get him other people to fight with and get him in the ring with. I'm pretty excited about the top of the card for Monday Night Raw going forward. But if you guys have any thoughts on where you see the trajectory of these four men, McIntyre, Rollins, Orton, and Lee, wherever you see their trajectory going, what storylines you can see coming out of this, what storylines you'd like to see coming out of this, leave a comment down below. I do want to get this comment section going a little bit more, but more so, I just want to see what theories come out. The most exciting episodes of Monday Night Raw are the ones after the pay-per-views because they can go in so many different directions. I'd love to get a grasp on what other people are thinking, on where things could go, regardless of how likely or unlikely that may be. The next title we're going to address here is going to be the Men's Raw Tag Team Championships. The champion Street Profits, Montez Ford, and Angelo Dawkins are going to have a Texas Tornado Tag Team match against who I've dubbed the Vega Boys, Andrade and Angel Garza with their manager Selena Vega. This match, decent enough action, doesn't really last too long. It was kind of a throwaway match. The match is going to end in no contest due to the outside interference from the group known as Retribution. They storm the ring, they take out Andrade and the Street Profits. They do not assault Angel Garza because Angel Garza left ringside with Demi Burnett, who was sitting at ringside for absolutely no reason, really. But he leaves his partner behind and he takes off to safety with Demi. Now, obviously, this is going to cause more friction among the Vega Boys. Angel Garza has some explaining to do to Andrade and Zelina Vega. I really love them as a duo. I wish that they wouldn't be so hell-bent on breaking them up, but it seems like that breakup is coming closer and quicker and more furiously with each passing week. And I just wish WWE would keep duos that work really well together instead of their insistence on blowing everything up. That seems to be a theme within WWE lately. It seemed to be a theme tonight, and my wrestling emotions just can't handle all of this, so I'm getting a wee bit frustrated. I have no idea if Retribution is supposed to tie into the Raw Men's Tag Team title picture in any way, shape, or form. I don't know if they want a shot at the Street Profits. I don't know if they have two members that are a tag team within the group because there's nobody finalized in terms of who's going to be in Retribution in the first place. So I'm not really sure what the purpose of this match being the match that Retribution got involved in, or if they just didn't really have another finish for that match. That's probably the case, but first Monday Night Raw after a pay-per-view, so no theory is off the table. I'd like to see, as we get closer to a reveal for Retribution, that it is a guy who plans to be at the top of the card. There is a tag team that wants to go after the tag team titles. There's a guy that wants to go over the mid-card title. And then there's supposed to be 6 members, so I guess there's 2 women that can go either against the Raw Women's Championship or against the Women's Tag Team Championship. But again, we're assuming that they're going to be on Raw in the first place and not on SmackDown because they're showing up there also. And I don't really know what the heck they're doing with this group. But anything is possible. So, this is most definitely, if you haven't already, a section for you to comment. We've got what's going to happen with the Street Profits. Who are they going to defend the tag team titles against at Clash of Champions? What's going on with the Vega Boys? Are Andrade and Angel Garza going to get another tag team title match? Are they going to just explode and compete against each other before that even happens? Does Retribution have anything to do with any parts of the tag team division? What's going to happen with Retribution in the first place? Do we even have any idea what we want to see come out of this, besides a proper execution of what the Nexus storyline should have been? I don't really know. It's a lot to take in. Hopefully it makes sense, but I have a theory that the Retribution thing was kind of a throwaway, and it's going to have nothing to do with the tag team titles or either of these two teams in the first place. Leave your comment down below and let me know what you think, though. Now, next title we'll address is the Raw Women's Championship. The champion is Asuka, and as you know, Asuka has successfully vanquished Sasha Banks for the title, and Bayley's out of her hair as well. It seems like those ladies are not going to be on Monday Night Raw anymore. I might be over assuming, but they weren't here tonight, and they've been featured on it non-stop for longer than I can remember. So Asuka is demanding new challengers. She's tired of dealing with Sasha Banks and Bayley. She wants a new fresh face to beat on. She doesn't care who it is because nobody's ready for Asuka.
Nobody is ready for Asuka!
Now, for the past few weeks, they've led you to believe that Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler are the 1 and 2 next in line for the Raw Women's Championship against Asuka. Turns out, they're a little bit busy. They're the new tag team champions after Payback.
Can we get serious now?
So instead, the other story that's happening with the women on Monday Night Raw, where it's Mickie James versus Lana and Natalya, is a story that's now going to transition into a storyline about the Raw Women's title. Mickie James tried to answer the challenge for Asuka. Lana and Natalya were right on her coattails. They were in the ring. We're going to have Lana versus Mickie James tonight, which Mickie James is going to win. Not a good match whatsoever, by the way. But Asuka doesn't care. She lets it be known that she'll defend the title against Mickie James, against Lana, against Natalya. And I don't know if they're going to do whoever wins this feud gets the title shot against Asuka. But considering the limitations of Lana in the ring, the excessive ring rust that Mickie James just has to have at this point from as long as Mickie James has been away. And Natalya, while being very technically sound, not overly fantastic in terms of in-ring work. My assumption, and I feel like it's a safe guess, would be that we're going to get a multi-woman title match at the Clash of Champions where Asuka defends the title at least against Mickie James and Natalya in a triple threat match, but probably also against Lana in what's a fatal four-way. Hopefully Asuka is dominant enough to walk away from that match easily, ideally, and keep her title, but would not surprise me that they have some sort of hokey finish where Asuka's not even involved in the decision and she loses her title again, and they put that title within what was the third storyline just among the women of Raw. I'm very half glass empty about this whole storyline because I don't see how it helps anybody whatsoever. The only possibility I see is this being very bad for Asuka. I'm sure somebody out there has a half glass full opinion on this and how this can make sense and how this can work and how this can be good for anybody. If you're one of those people, leave a comment down below because I seriously would like to see a differing opinion about this. Now, we mentioned a second ago that Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax were supposed to be up for the Raw Women's Championship, but they're busy as tag team champions. They beat Sasha Banks and Bayley last night at Payback. Now, when I saw them together, I immediately thought Jaxler. And it turns out a few other people have thought that as well. Simon from What Culture has also dubbed the team Jaxler as well. I'm hoping that takes off. If you've also thought that before you've heard it anywhere else, leave a comment down below and let me know that you were one of those people. I'd like to see just how much of a thing that really is. I know they'll never run with it on TV, but be interesting to me. Nonetheless, they need new competitors for their women's tag team championships because I guess Sasha Banks and Bayley are not going to get a return match for those titles. And if they do, maybe they're throwing in a triple threat women's tag team title match. I'm not sure. It seems that Banks and Bayley are super exclusive to SmackDown now, but they're looking for new competitors. We've got a number one contenders match tonight. It's going to be the Riot Squad, who are officially back together and officially named the Riot Squad again, even though last night they tried to get a different name across. I believe it was Live to Riot or Living Riot or something along those lines, and it seems Creative was not having that because they're the Riot Squad, whether they like it or not, and they're going to compete tonight against the Iconics. In a match with way too much stipulation. The winner of the match is going to get a title shot against Team Jaxler at the Clash of Champions for the women's tag team titles. That's perfectly fine. I think they need to win more than two, and possibly tonight being a third match against the Iconics to qualify for a women's tag team title opportunity. I think that's kind of a low bar to set, that you beat one team 2 or 3 times, but whatever. They don't really have many other tag teams, I guess. So, what can you do? This all being despite the fact that Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott just really haven't been on the same page lately. But yet, they have the possibility of a tag team title opportunity in the future. I would imagine not, because they're going up against the Iconics, and as I've stated before, the Iconics should just never lose. They should never lose a match that they're ever in, individually, especially in a tag team match. I think they are one of the best duos that has ever been on WWE television. Now, considering WWE has a history of 50-50 booking, and the Riot Squad beat the Iconics last night on the pre-show for Payback, you'd assume that they'd make the obvious decision, give the Iconics the win, make them even with the Riot Squad, give them the title opportunity at the Clash of Champions against Team Jaxler, hopefully somehow pull out a victory, and get back their women's tag team championships that they should never be without in the first place. However, it seems that the internet reports of Vince McMahon's desire to push Peyton Royce as a singles competitor are indeed true, because they had Ruby Riott roll up, or rather stack up, Billie Kay for a pinfall victory, giving the Riot Squad, Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott, an opportunity to face Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax at the Clash of Champions for the women's tag team titles, disbanding the Iconics, and honestly setting up nothing but quicksand for the career of Billie Kay from here on out. There's no story to the disbanding of either team, so it was a bit forced, it was quite a bit rushed, it was all the way unnecessary. Peyton Royce is obviously going to come out of this ahead of Billie Kay because she has the support of Vince McMahon, and obviously there's going to be a feud, Peyton Royce versus Billie Kay. Billie Kay is going to lose that. It seems Billie Kay has 1 or 2 other losses on her calendar as well, because after the Iconics lost their match, for whatever reason they were hanging out in Raw Underground, because I guess that's how they coped with grief. And when Marina Shafir and Jessamyn Duke were making their Raw Underground debuts, Peyton Royce decided to throw Billie Kay into the ring with these ladies, where Billie Kay gets knocked out. Billie Kay's probably going to end up losing a match, even if it's a Raw Underground match, against probably both Jessamyn Duke and Marina Shafir, to go alongside her inevitable loss to Peyton Royce, who I guess is now the heel. So I guess Billie Kay is a face. But either way, Billie Kay is going to be a face with 3 losses on our upcoming calendar. I'd rather they don't have her lose all those matches before they inevitably draft Billie Kay to SmackDown. But obviously that's too much to ask for. I'd rather Billie Kay just be off television and just show up on SmackDown. Or she quits Raw and just goes to SmackDown like next week. I don't need to see the Iconics facing each other. Their goal together They don't need to be opposing each other. If you want to push Peyton Royce, I guess push Peyton Royce, but push Billie Kay on the other brand. She has great character work. They've been pushing her as the bruiser of the team, which I've never thought of her as. But if you're going to push her that way, that means she can be competitive and she can fight in the ring. And everybody knows all of SmackDown needs help, particularly their women's division. So if you can add anything to it by having the bruiser Billie Kay, which I think might have actually a good ring to it, and by all means do that. I'm completely devastated after this segment. It did take the wind out of my sails. It was really hard to watch the rest of the show after this point, to be honest with you. Not everybody is an Iconics fan somehow. I do get that. If you're one of those people, leave a comment down below explaining yourself, because I really don't understand how anybody can not absolutely love them. But if you are devastated like me as well, leave a comment down below as well, and we can mourn together. Now, in terms of one of the bright spots on the show, and the last championship will address, the United States champion Bobby Lashley. They didn't do anything to set up a title match for him at the Clash of Champions, but they did have another strong showing. Lashley's already renamed his finisher, by the way, from the full Nelson to the full Lashley, but now to the Hurt Lock, and I think that is a significant upgrade. The full Lashley sounded very awkward, and the best name for the full Nelson in my lifetime of watching wrestling has been the Master Lock when it was used by Chris Masters. I also did immediately think of the movie The Hurt Locker when they debuted the name The Hurt Business. So having that full Nelson named The Hurt Lock is a pretty good combination. That's not an intentional pun, by the way, with combination and lock. Anyway, the three members of the Hurt Business are in a six-man tag tonight against Cedric Alexander and the Viking Raiders, who find themselves also in a feud with the Hurt Business now because of Raw Underground. And I do admit, while the premise of Raw Underground's kind of weird and all the squash matches are kind of, I like it very much so as something to make the show make sense, as an excuse platform instead of things just happen. If they are going to actually put the time and effort to use that as a platform, I think my opinion on Raw Underground could have been quite a bit premature, and I think this premise could work like absolute gangbusters, but they need to continue to use it for this purpose. In terms of the six-man tag itself, nothing really major. I guess the high points of it are Hurt Business always looks dominant in anything they do, whether they win or lose in a match. The Viking Raiders weren't singing or dancing or having any sort of skit. They didn't have Demi Burnett at ringside, even though they had the backstage segment with Ivar and Demi Burnett, which we're absolutely sick of. But at least it was a decent enough wrestling contest, where Cedric Alexander does get the roll-up win on MVP, but he does hold the tights to do so. So he does show a willingness to cheat, which does put a smile on MVP's face. And it also allows MVP to hold off Lashley and Shelton from assaulting Cedric Alexander after the match, because he is proud of the heelish ways that Cedric Alexander just employed. Maybe there's hope that there's a little bit of a change of personality to Cedric, and he ends up joining the Hurt Business. MVP, though, did the same thing where he cheated to win, and I thought this was going to lead to Apollo Crews joining the Hurt Business. That hasn't happened. In fact, it looks like it's going more and more so the other way. So I guess Cedric Alexander was probably going to go more and more so the other way. I'm not sure. But Cedric Alexander is a phenomenal athlete, and if this is going to get him his own storyline instead of just being the outside participant in the Apollo Crews storyline, I'm here for that. That's perfectly fine. Side bit though, Cedric Alexander is going to be left laying in the backstage area, because while the Hurt Business wasn't going to jump Cedric Alexander in the ring after the match when he's next to the Viking Raiders, And the Viking Raiders are nowhere to be found backstage. They are going to jump Cedric because Ricochet and Apollo Crews are also nowhere to be found. The narrative there could be that when Cedric needs help and he needs his friends are just not around, and Cedric finds himself as a victim in these situations. Maybe that could be the catalyst for the heel turn for Cedric, but I feel like I'm overbooking this. If you guys have a thought, theory, concept, just a general viewpoint on the Hurt Business, on Cedric Alexander, on Apollo Crews, or even on Ricochet, or this version of the Viking Raiders, because there's a couple of different versions of the Viking Raiders at the moment, leave a comment down below and let's hear all of them. Now, speaking of the Hurt Business, they're going to have a match tonight in the Raw Underground. It's going to be Shelton Benjamin versus Apollo Crews. It doesn't really go anywhere. The match ends up outside of the ring. They go into the crowd. Their friends get involved. Now we have the Hurt Business beating on Apollo Crews and Cedric Alexander and Ricochet, and they leave them laying. Pretty decisive. Hurt Business are not to be messed around with in the Raw Underground. They're very much in their nature there. While this whole storyline is beneficial for getting Ricochet, Cedric Alexander, and Apollo Crews on air TV time, the fact that they keep eating losses left and right to the Hurt Business, particularly decisive losses when they're going to be around the Underground, it's not going to be doing much for their upward trajectory, I think. I think at a certain point, losses do matter and it does hurt your development, and either they need to come out on top or they need to divert from their current storyline with one or two of them turning heel, joining the Hurt Business, or whatever the case might be. Hurt Business have a million different ways they can go. I'm honestly excited to see every single one of them. And if you have any thoughts, theories, or concepts about the Hurt Business, I would be absolutely super excited to hear those, because I feel like I can go back and forth with any of you on those thoughts and fantasy booking ideas forever. Now, the other segments that take place on the Raw Underground, as I mentioned, Jessamyn Duke and Marina Shafir did debut. They did have squash matches each. They did look very good. I don't think they're quite ready to be inside of a wrestling ring, but in terms of the Raw Underground for Shane McMahon's Fight Club, they looked very good. Their striking looked phenomenal, as it should, because they're both real-life MMA competitors, but usually they try to pull them and it looks very fake. Like Shayna Baszler, for example, when Shayna Baszler was in the Raw Underground, her striking looked terrible. It was pretty exciting. I think they can be two badasses in the Raw Underground. I don't know who did the wardrobe for Marina Shafir, by the way. Hopefully that's a thing that gets rectified next week. But it looks fantastic. I hope they don't have a thing with Billie Kay. I'd like to see where they go with this. Hopefully against real competitors. Hopefully against real wrestlers. Pretty tired of the squash matches, but we'll see. It's still early for them. The other match of note, though, is Titus O'Neil is back on television because he's tired of just doing backstage stuff, I guess. He does remind you that he is pretty built. He is pretty big. He is a little bit of a badass when he actually wants to be. Kind of like when he debuted, but then you forgot all about that because they had him being a complete fool very quick into his debut and completely ever since. He had a squash match. He beats up on Johnny Nobody. Riddick Moss jumps into the ring, though, and he challenges Titus O'Neil. And honestly, it's competitive for about 15 seconds before Riddick Moss hits a strike to the face. I'm not sure if Riddick Moss has a boxing background of any sort, but it looked like he could have. He hits the punch, or a couple punches, to Titus O'Neil, who drops. Riddick Moss mounts him. More strikes to the head. Match is over. Riddick Moss wins. And if there's anybody in the Raw Underground who has a rocket ship strapped to his back, I think it's Riddick Moss. And if they do get a title for the Raw Underground, as is being speculated, I think Riddick Moss is a strong contender to be crowned that champion. again, as I led this episode with, ideally, I would have them take the 24/7 title and put it within the confines of the Raw Underground and just use that. It would give you your title for the Raw Underground. It would get rid of all the goofy skits with the 24/7 title. It's also kind of helpful that the belt is green, and this is Shane McMahon's Fight Club, whose theme song and catchphrase is "Here comes the money," money being green. It all kind of works. I know it's a little bit of a stretch. I get it. But WWE has tried to pull off more outrageous and much more nonsensical things to us as a viewer. They're way more insulting to our intelligence. So I think if they really wanted to, they could absolutely pull this off with the reasoning and rationale I just explained. If you have a countering point, or you somehow agree with me on the prospects of the Raw Underground, the 24/7 title, anything that's happening within either of those two aspects of the show, again, leave a comment down below. I do want to get the comment section going a little bit more. I know you guys have been helping out with helping to grow the channel. The subscriber count has gone up a little bit, and I do appreciate that. So be sure to like the video. That way YouTube will know to share it with others. Continue to share it on your social medias, as I've seen some of you do. That does help as well, and at current state a little bit more so than YouTube sharing of the videos. Continue to do that. It is much appreciated. Like I've said a dozen times on this episode, leave some comments down below. Let's go back and forth on some theories here. I'm going to bid you adieu because I still need to have a very deep and heavy cry about the Iconics. My battery is dying, so I'm Marcus Cash, and I'll see you next time for Prichard's Raw.